Hey guys, so this video is quite a bit late. This is my weekly wrap-up and currently reading. This is everything that I read since the last time I made one of these videos. I usually say in this past week, but I mean it's been over a week now, and it's mostly because I've been not feeling so well the past few days. Every single day I just keep coming home with a sore throat or a headache and just super exhausted, so I would not really feel like filming anything. And so I didn't film anything the past few days, and that's why you're getting this on a Thursday instead of a Monday. And the next time I post one of these, I'm going to want to do it on in like 4 days. So not much time in between this one and the next one, but whatever. It's not a big deal. I finished 6 more things, I think, since the last time that I did one of these last week. And you know what that means. I'm going to tally it, but instead of using that thing, I have this, which Giselle found for me at a Dollar Tree for $1. It's a little mini chalkboard. So I'm going to open this and start using this to tally stuff down, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more visible. I think for right now, I'm just going to put it like right here, maybe, or maybe even put it up here, right there. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so there's the chalkboard. I do have some chalk, and now if I take what I already had plus this, I am now at 22 for the year so far. So there's 22, and I mean, I think I'm gonna probably have to get another one of these at some point when this one's all filled up, but they're only $1, and I guess what I'll do is just have them, one sitting up here, one sitting right here, one sitting right here, depending on how much I actually get through, I guess. And I mean, it's always gonna be blurry because the background is just, the depth of field is just like that. But the point is to see it fill up. Not necessarily see each individual thing, but the point is to see them fill up. So eventually this thing will be filled up with white as the year goes on. Anyway, so the things that I finished this past week. The first thing that I finished, I read this in one sitting actually, and I've already posted a review on it. It is Universal Harvester by John Darnielle. This is, and this edition is this little VHS tape with a lovely little mass market paperback in it. This is the ARC-only edition. Hopefully they will publish it like this someday, maybe a year from now when they usually do like a paperback reprinting of it. They'll maybe give this a shot, and because I think a lot of people, when they saw the people that got ARCs of this, that they got excited for it, and then they weren't so excited when they saw that it was actually coming out in hardcover. But the hardcover is still really cool, and I am doing a giveaway of the hardcover on that review, so if you're interested in that, you should go check that out. But this is like an very atmospheric sort of mystery story that really, it begins with the mystery, and you kind of see this mystery develop surrounding these VHS tapes that have been overwritten, and this guy that works at a VHS rental store kind of become aware of those VHS tapes that have been overwritten, and then the people around him, his life starts getting sort of affected by this. The person he works for gets really into the idea of finding the place where these were shot. She believes that she knows where they were shot, and like his dad and him watch movies all the time together, and the main character ends up showing his dad these. And one of the customers who brought one of these tapes in is like super obsessed with trying to figure out what they're all about. And Jeremy, the main character, just kind of doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And it kind of veers off from being about the mystery and being more about the atmosphere and the presence that mystery creates amongst all the people that are a part of it. And so it's not necessarily a satisfying mystery story or anything like that. Definitely not a thriller of any sort. It's a very slow-paced book, but it's also very quick. It's very short and easy to get through, and the writing is very nice. And yeah, I talked about it quite a bit in that review, so go watch that if you want to know more about it. But I liked it well enough, and I would definitely be interested in reading more by this author. And then I also finished Crossroads of Canopy by Thariah Dyer. This is the first in a new series. This just came out on the 31st of January, and I hadn't gotten a chance to get to it before that, so I just finished it, so I'm going to be posting a review of it very soon. I'll probably be working on that sometime today, and hoping to post it in the next few days. And it's a pretty good story, but I did have some issues with it. It was very, very slow to begin with, and the author is trying a little bit too hard, I think, with her writing, especially at the beginning. She's very, very, very flowery at the beginning, which is nice in some ways, but in other ways it just made the story that much more difficult to discern because, I mean, it's just difficult to tell what's important, what the point of it all is. And at first it seems like the point is just this flowery language in this kind of cool setting, and with a character that's a bit of a brat. This main character, her mother wants to sell her into slavery, basically. And this takes place in a place called Canopy, where there are 13 gods and goddesses who are always reincarnated into different bodies when they die. They can be reincarnated either into male or female bodies. Each god or goddess, in whatever iteration they currently are in, have a bodyguard that kind of protects them, that is the opposite gender that they are. So if it's a goddess, then they have a male bodyguard. The main character kind of becomes a part of the garden, which is like a sort of temple-ish kind of place for a goddess called Udblayan, and she is like the goddess of life. She becomes a gardener for the garden, and she has to take these certain vows, and she has to stay within the garden. And if she leaves the garden, then she'll be kind of disavowed a little bit, like it'll be more difficult for her to come back, and she'll be more tempted outside of the garden. And she believes that the next iteration of Udblayan, the goddess of life, will end up being a god, and she really wants to be that eventual god's bodyguard. And so she really believes that this is what her destiny is. And so she kind of sets off to be that at some point, but she's kind of denied acceptance into a different part of the hierarchy of the garden. She wanted to become a servant, which is just a step up from where she currently is. And they get to learn more. They get to learn more about the magic and stuff. And her friends are accepted, but she is not. And she kind of goes off and it does these kind of sacrilege things. She kind of befriends these slaves. There's a lot of slaves in this. Everything that's done in this world is done by slaves from Understory, which is just below Canopy. So all the gods and goddesses are in kingdoms in Canopy, and there's a barrier in between them and Understory, and then there's Floor. And Understory is a very dangerous place where people live, but they are prone to falling and chimeras and just other dangerous things like that. And yeah, so it's an interesting story. It's an interesting premise. I think the premise is definitely the best thing about it. The setting is really interesting, but it's also it's supposed to read whimsical, and the writing is very whimsical, but it's also very gritty and dark, and a lot of the things that happen are very dark. And it definitely picks up about halfway through. For the first half, I was very much kind of on it, but going into the second half, I really felt more into it. More stuff started happening, and it all just kind of like got more interesting after that. But in general, it's not my favorite thing I've ever read, but I will definitely have some more stuff to say on it. I'm going to be doing a full review of this very, very shortly, like I said. So look out for more thoughts on that when the time comes. I still have some thoughts that I still need to put together. I'm not entirely sure what I think of yet, but I'm going to put my thoughts together and talk about it in a review very shortly. So those are the physical books that I finished. And I also finished an audiobook called Into the Storm by Taylor Anderson. This is the first book in a series called Destroyer Men. This is about during World War II, this destroyer ship is suddenly transported after a fight with the Japanese. Is transported to an alternate history. It's not exactly sure. We're not exactly sure what year it is they get transported back to, but it's completely different. There's this new species of being, I guess, that there's no people, there's no humans anymore. The humans on this destroyer ship call this new race of people that they encounter monkey cats at first, because they don't know exactly what to call them. And it's really strange and kind of ridiculous, but also it was a lot of fun, actually. I actually enjoyed it, and I'm going to be listening to the next one at the very least. I have a bunch of these, and so I'll keep listening to them until I stop liking them, but this one was actually pretty fun, and I enjoyed it well enough. And they kind of get engrossed into this war between the monkey cats race and this like weird like lizard dinosaur-y kind of race, and they are called the Grick. They're very violent and dangerous, and they just kind of have the goal of wiping out all of the monkey cat race. And there's like a specific name for them, the Lemurians, and they eventually start actually calling them the Lemurians and stuff. But anyway, so they kind of get thrown into the middle of this war between the Gricks and the Lemurians, and it's a very bloody war that they have going on, and the Lemurians really don't stand a chance until the Destroyer Men come along and the Destroyermen kind of give them allies that they can learn from. And the Destroyermen, obviously, they don't really have anything in this alternate history. They don't really have anything at all. They're gonna run out of food. They're gonna run out of water. They're gonna run out of fuel. They're gonna run out of ammunition and all stuff like that. So they kind of need help from the Lemurians, and so they kind of form this alliance. And it was interesting because I was expecting it to be more like antagonistic between those two, between the humans and the Lemurians. But it was actually like really respectful. It was really interesting seeing their relationship develop as allies. Everyone on the destroyer ship was just very respectful of the Lemurians and their way of life, and same back to the humans on the destroyer. And it was just really interesting to see their dynamic, and it was kind of fun, and I kind of enjoyed it. Not the best thing ever. It was kind of cheesy in a lot of ways, very cheesy, and kind of like gung-ho on American patriotism kind of thing for a little bit, but it kind of fell out of that a little bit more towards like the middle and the end and stuff, and I'm interested to see where it goes. We'll see where it goes and see if I continue to like it. I'll keep talking about the series and let you know how I feel about it. And then I also finished a book called The Complete Money Makeover by, I don't even remember this guy's name, Dave Ramsey. A guy named Dave Ramsey. I've never heard of him before this. And Giselle really wanted me to listen to this with her. She found it on Overdrive, and we were like, okay, let's listen to this. We could always use money advice. And I mean, a lot of the stuff he had to say was interesting and kind of applied to stuff that we could do, I guess. But I feel like he was trying to push this certain list of things that just does not apply to every single situation, no matter how much he seemed to want it to apply to every single situation, how much he seemed to believe it applied to every single situation. It really does not. A lot of the stuff he said did not apply to our situation at all. And I feel it was very outdated, which is not necessarily his fault. And the audiobook version of this is just like him. It's narrated by the author. It's just a guy yelling at you for 4 straight hours. Literally yelling at you for 4 straight hours. It's kind of hilarious. And then I also finished listening to The Bear the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And actually, I liked this quite a bit. And I especially liked the audiobook. The audiobook narrator was good. And this is like a Russian story following a character named Vasilisa and her family. After her mother dies, her father goes to Moscow and ends up bringing back a new wife, which she's like the daughter of a prince. And she is very nervous to go with this man she's never met before. And she becomes Vasilisa's stepmother. But she really doesn't have any warm feelings towards Vasilisa or any of the characters that she encounters in this new place she goes to. In this smaller town, village kind of place, they have house spirits and like forest spirits and like these things that they give like little offerings to. And it really strikes Vasilisa's new stepmother wrong. And Vasilisa especially, she has like this kind of wild imagination, but she can kind of interact with these house spirits and these different kinds of spirits that are all around this village, and everyone doesn't see besides her, and you never quite know whether she's actually seeing them or if it's her imagination. But it really strikes her stepmother the wrong way, and so this priest ends up coming, this Christian priest, and ends up teaching them the entire village, I guess, the sins of their ways, and they kind of all start getting really scared of what they've been doing, and Vasilisa just has a lot of problems with what's happening. There's these like evil creatures that live in the surrounding forest that the good spirits were keeping out, and since no one wants to kind of give offerings to these spirits anymore, no one wants to acknowledge them anymore, the evil ones start kind of creeping in a little bit more, and Vasilisa kind of senses this and knows this is happening, but no one else seems to know it's happening, and her stepmother kind of vilifies her and sets her apart from everyone else, and it was really good. I liked it a lot, actually. It was a fun story. A little bit cartoonish in some ways, like the stepmother was a bit on the like far too like evil side of things. Like she just kind of felt like an evil stepmother kind of character, and some of them were kind of like caricatures of characters but not actual characters, and that was a bit of a problem, but also it was a fun story, and I did enjoy reading it. It went by pretty quickly. It's a pretty quick story. It's good, and I do recommend it. I think I might do a review of that one. I just finished that one, so I still have some thoughts to put together on it, so I will see what I think, and maybe I'll be able to do a full review of it. I'm not sure, but we'll see. And then I also finished I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. I've been reading lots of Dan Wells recently, and I wanted to start with this first book that he ever got published. And this I actually enjoyed quite a bit. Like, especially at first, I was getting really into it. It was really fascinating seeing from the main character's perspective, and a lot of things that were happening, a lot of things that he was saying and feeling and thinking were really fascinating and interesting. And I started going towards like supernatural side of things, which I think I've heard him talk before about his books. I've heard him talk about them, and that some people really didn't like the supernatural aspect of it. And I can kind of see why. When it starts to get introduced, it's kind of like, does this really fit? But then as the more it goes on, the more it does fit, and the more interesting it gets, and the better it gets. And I actually did really enjoy this a lot, and I really enjoy Dan Wells' writing. I enjoy his characters quite a bit, and I enjoy how he handles things in the books that I've read from him so far. I'm definitely going to be continuing on with the series. It's basically this sociopathic kid named John Wayne Cleaver. He has a very unfortunate name, John Wayne, like John Wayne Casey, and the last name Cleaver. And he like points this out at one point, and it's just, his name is very unfortunate, which I just thought was a kind of a funny little thing that Dan Wells did. Fun fact, my middle name is Wayne, and Wayne is the most common middle name of serial killers, if you did not know that already. But anyway, John Wayne Cleaver is a sociopath, basically a diagnosed sociopath. He just doesn't really have empathy for anyone. He can't really feel human emotion the way others do. He doesn't feel a connection to other people the way others do. He has this huge obsession with death. His parents, his dad is gone away now, but now his mom and his aunt run a morgue, and he's always in there helping them. And he's just fascinated with death. He's fascinated with serial killers. He writes like history reports on them, like serial killers of history. And his mother is very worried about him. He has a therapist that is kind of worried about him, that he talks to all the time. And this serial killer has come to this town that he lives in. And yeah, he starts to sort of investigate a little bit because he's very fascinated with it and the fact that it's so close to home. And lots of people around him are very concerned about this. So anyway, it's fun as far as something like that can be fun. And like I said, I enjoy Dan Wells' take on it and his handling of it. And I really look forward to reading the rest of these. This upcoming week, I plan on reading. Right now, I'm reading and hoping to finish probably today, The Devil Crept In by Anya Alborn. I'm not sure if I'm enjoying this quite yet. It's about this kid who disappears. This kind of like rude, mean-spirited, not so great kid disappears, and his best friend / younger cousin kind of wants to go out and investigate and look for him. And this whole life, everyone in his life is just awful to him all the time. And I'm not sure if I'm liking it or not. I will talk more about it in a review at some point, and I guess in my next weekly wrap-up as well. The next book I plan on getting to is back here. It is The 12 Kings of Shirikai by Bradley Bullier. I'm going to read this and probably read his next book, With Blood Upon the Sand, right after this one. I'm going to try to read them back to back. I'm not sure how long that'll take me, but I hope to do reviews of both of them. So I'm going to read those, and then I also still need to finish Dead House Gates by Steven Erikson. I've been just reading this in the background with other things and haven't finished it quite yet. Hopefully I will be able to finish it at some point. It's just I've been kind of prioritizing the arcs and all of the review copies that I have to read. And so this is all the other books that I want to read have kind of been pushed to the back because of that, because I want to read all the arcs and stuff that I have to read more than I want to read anything else. So I'm going to keep continuing to focus on the arcs and hopefully still get to stuff like this as soon as I possibly can. As soon as I kind of get through a bunch of these that I have that come out right in a row, I should be able to get to this and focus on it more as soon as possible, and we'll see when that happens. But I'm going to continue to read it. And then the only audiobook that I plan on trying to finish in the next few days, but I have several others that I can get to if I do finish this one and want to move on to something else. I'm not sure what I'm going to do after this one, but the next one is Deadbeat by Jim Butcher. This is the next Dresden Files book. And it's like the 8th or 9th one, I don't remember which, but I've been really enjoying the series and I want to keep reading them, so I would move on to this one. I would love to catch up with the series before the year is over, and to do that I need to listen to a couple of them every month or so. I think that is finally it for this. Hopefully you'll see another one of these on time next week, like Monday or Tuesday or something like that, instead of Thursday, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments on anything that I showed today, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've read anything by these authors or of these books specifically, I would love to hear your opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later with more.